Welcome to the Waves Business Coaching Podcast, where you can equip yourself with the tools and insights to build the dream team your business needs so that you can lead with confidence, master your people challenges, and reclaim your freedom. I'm your host, Jacob Carnes, a business coach and author of Master Your First Job. This week on the podcast, I interview Joe McKay. He went from earning $500 in his first batch of LinkedIn posts to building a multi-six-figure business in under 2 years. He has mastered the art of creating content that resonates with people. And as a LinkedIn ghostwriter, he's helped solopreneurs, founders, business owners, and CEOs generate over 2 million impressions and establish powerful personal brands. And now he's paying it forward by coaching people how to do that and build a business they love. Look, if you're like me, LinkedIn is a necessary evil. It can be something that you probably maybe don't enjoy. Enjoy the personal side of it, but you got to fight through all the people begging for sales in your DMs and all the lurkers that reach out on LinkedIn. And Joe and I just had a great conversation about how to create LinkedIn content that works, what kind of posts work, what kind of posts don't work, how to create engagement on LinkedIn, and honestly, just how to make LinkedIn a better place for everybody and be authentic with how you do LinkedIn. I wrote a book called Master Your First Job, came out last year. And this is really to help first-time employees thrive in their roles and to help business owners better understand and develop their young talent. If you'd like a free copy, you can go to masteryourfirstjob.com/free. That's masteryourfirstjob.com/free. Free ebook. Really excited for this episode. Thank you for being here. Let's dive into my conversation with Joe McKay about LinkedIn, something we all do. Joe McKay, thank you so much for being on the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. I'd love for you to introduce yourself, kind of share a little bit about who Joe is.
Hey, Jacob, thanks so much for having me on the show. I think there's 3 things to know about me. I've got a very curious mind. I've got a strong bias to action, and I'm very resourceful.
Okay.
And I think those 3 factors have combined in some interesting ways over the years. I'm now a very happy solopreneur, and I don't think I can ever be employed again.
I'm with you.
I don't think I'll ever look back. But, as I reflect, like my first kind of side hustle was in university. I created Dodgeball Sydney. So it's still the biggest dodgeball community in Australia.
Wow. And you created it.
Yeah, so very much kind of around the time of the Ben Stiller movie. Dodgeball was always the highlight of our gym class at high school. And I had a group of friends at the time. We played a lot of social sport together. And at some point got sick of the sports that were on offer. We'd been playing on repeat and saw that movie and thought, dodgeball, let's play dodgeball.
That's the next step. Yep.
And did some Googling, and there just wasn't a way to play dodgeball in Sydney, Australia, where I was living at the time. And so I just thought, I can't be the only person that wants to play dodgeball.
Oh, especially after the movie came out.
This was, I think this was 2008, 2009. Okay. So the movie was definitely a thing and had been pretty big. So just made a booking for a facility, an indoor facility, got some balls, got some friends together, put up a website and a Facebook page, and it grew from there. And to this day, this is close to 15 years later now. Still the biggest active dodgeball community in Australia, which I'm really proud of. And so that was my first side hustle, and I think I've done 1,000,001 different things.
Yeah.
I guess to the present day and my current, it's more than a side hustle now, but I'm a business coach for solopreneurs. And really where I specialize is in using LinkedIn and turning it into a revenue channel and building the kind of the systems and the processes and a way to think about content and content strategy to help solopreneurs deal with what I think of as lumpy income. Particularly in the early stages, you can face really lumps and bumps in your income. It's a stressful place to be. And so the teaching that I share really is around trying to smooth out that income and make it more consistent, powered by LinkedIn really as a key marketing and sales channel. So that's what I'm doing at the moment.
I love this. And I'm excited to talk about LinkedIn for a lot of reasons, which I'll get into. I have mixed feelings on LinkedIn. I do it. I'm active on LinkedIn, but I'm excited to dive in there. Before we do, I do want to ask, I read a book called Master Your First Job. What was your first job?
My first official job, I worked at bagel house in a food court in the central business district in Sydney. I think I worked there for 3 or 4 shifts before getting fired.
Okay. What did you get fired for, if you don't mind me asking?
Look, I think I wasn't available for a shift. I asked
Okay.
for a change in a shift.
And they
It
were
wasn't
like, no way.
for bad performance. Well, I don't know, but I was obviously very replaceable. I think that was my first ever job, and then from there it was nightclub. I collected glasses in a nightclub.
Okay. There you go.
I got fired from that after a couple of shifts as well.
Okay.
I unplugged the music. So it was really
Big
hot in this
mistake.
club. It was like 2 a.m. My boss asked me to climb up behind the DJ and plug in the fans.
Mm-hmm.
And I was feeling around in the dark trying to find this PowerPoint and push the wrong button.
Yep.
And cut the
music
speakers.
off. Man,
And
that's funny.
that was the end of that job as well.
Is Bagel House a chain in Sydney? Or is that
Yeah,
just like
it was at the time. I'm not sure if it's still around. I mean, this
Okay.
is going back to
Long
2007.
time ago.
Good bagels though. I sampled a
go.
lot of product.
That's awesome. Well, let's kind of dive into LinkedIn here. You've said you've written over 1,000 LinkedIn posts, and you've told me like there's 3 types of LinkedIn posts that every business owner needs in their toolkit. Really excited to dive in because I'm going to take notes myself here. What are those 3 types of posts that every business owner needs?
Yeah, so I kind of landed on these 3 just to give a structure to all the content that I was creating. Like, I think there's so much advice out there. You know, if you're staring at a blank page, it can be a hard place to start. So the 3 types of posts that I really think of: an awareness post, a trust post, and an offer post. So everything that you create should be trying to achieve one of those 3 objectives. And so maybe to give some more detail to this, your awareness post is really designed to go as far and wide as possible. It's generally going to be a story-based post. So it might be a story about how you came to start your small business. It might be a story about a big fail that you've had, or a lesson you've learned, or a win that you've had, why you're in business and why you love what you do. It's really designed to resonate with a wide group of people, to get your photo, your headline, your profile out there as wide as you can. And I reckon you want to write a post like that about once every 3 posts. The trust-based post is really designed. We're going to start to narrow the funnel of who we're trying to talk to in this post. So the awareness post is for everyone. The trust post is trying to get a little bit more focused around your target audience, and you really want to educate your audience and demonstrate your expertise. You know, demonstrate that you have skills and ability to solve the problem that your target audience faces. And so really the type of post you want to create there is either introducing a framework or a tip that you share with clients. It might be introducing a mental model that you use to explain what you do. You might do a quick breakdown of how you solve a key problem that one of your clients faces. And so the goal, much more than kind of broad-based awareness, is really proving your expertise, demonstrating that you know what you're talking about. And this is where I recommend people spend most of their focus when it comes to content. I reckon this is a kind of a 50 to 60% of your content should be focused on building trust, demonstrating expertise, that you understand the problems that your target audience faces and that you can solve them. That's our first 2. And then the kind of the third type of post is an offer post. And this is really, and I think this is something that people miss a lot. This is making it a no-brainer for someone to work with you. So this is presenting really clearly, here's who I help, here's how I help them, you know, here's what's included in my offer, and here's how you can work with me if you want to work with me. Make that offer really clear in black and white. And this is something you can do. Like, that could be one post that you post on a regular basis. You might just post that once every month. If your core offer kind of doesn't change, you don't have to change this too much. But just making that offer every now and then, I'd say 10% of the time, 15% of the time, just making it really clear for people who might be interested in working with you how they can do that and what you help achieve. And what goes really well with that kind of post is a testimonial, or if you break down a client result, like a great result that a client might have had, success metrics from previous projects, all that kind of stuff to really build that social proof in when you're making an offer.
So something you kind of said here, because I want to kind of dive into how you get into doing this.
Hmm.
You've written over 1,000 LinkedIn posts. You've done this for other people though, right?
Yeah. So I was and still am with
Yeah.
certain clients a LinkedIn ghostwriter.
There you go.
Yeah. So a lot of those 1,000 posts have been for other people other than myself.
Yeah.
And so this is kind of the framework that I've applied in those situations, and this is the way I've simplified everything that's out there so that I have something that I can repeat and deliver consistently for clients and for myself as well.
Let me ask you this. As a LinkedIn ghostwriter, obviously you're going to have to sit down with a client and figure out what it is they do so that you can write good content for them. What are some of those questions you start to ask so that you can write good LinkedIn content?
I think the key questions you need to be able to answer to write LinkedIn content, it all comes back to your customer, who you're trying to reach. And so I actually think the best content isn't created or ideated. It's found in your existing interactions with customers. So I actually think if you're doing LinkedIn well or any kind of content marketing well, you should be able to go into your existing interactions with customers and harvest content from there. So whether that's a discovery call, what are the questions that people ask before they decide to buy from you? What are the objections that you might get from customers on sales or discovery calls? What are the common roadblocks that clients face during a project with you, or the key moments where you deliver value for clients? Like all these existing customer interactions you're having, I think they're actually the best sources of content inspiration, because it's going to be stuff that resonates with that audience.
Yeah.
So I think more than kind of the questions to ask, it's really where to go looking for inspiration.
That's good. Like know where to go look for inspiration to make those posts. So if I'm a business owner just getting started, and even if it's like a small business or you're a solopreneur and it's like, okay, right now I don't really do LinkedIn at all. I like people's posts. Maybe I write an update about, result my business got. What's one type of post they could prioritize just to get started with being more present and having more of a LinkedIn presence?
Look, I think it's really important to remind your audience quite regularly who you are and what you do.
Hmm.
I think a lot of us, because we spend all our time thinking about our own businesses, and we might have done one update or a post here and there that shares what we're doing or what we're working on. I think we often think that everyone in our network knows what we're doing and who we serve. And so I think if you're short on time or you're just starting out, a great place to start is just refreshing your audience's memory.
Yeah.
About the services you offer and who you offer them to, because a lot of people simply won't be aware. I think a statistic that really tells this story for me is only between 6 to 8% of your first degree network will see any one post that you share.
Wow, really?
So if you post one time saying, I'm proud to announce that I'm starting this new venture, more than 90% of your network will not see that update. So if you're starting out, a really simple, consistent approach to just letting people know what you're doing and who you're doing it for.
That's huge. It's an interesting stat. I feel like LinkedIn is this like code. I feel like I have to crack, right? Or it's like, okay, what's the algorithm? What's the SEO? What's being prioritized? And I hear things from people all the time, but that sticks out to me. I mean, even for me personally, just being like, I need to more often tell people who I am and what I do, because I'm adding connections all the time, right? Which is a good thing. But two, if only 6 to 8% are seeing that, that's a good reminder. I'm just getting my name out there and making sure people are associating what I do with who I am and my face, my picture, and stuff like that.
Yeah, absolutely. I think the if that's the 101 answer, I think the 201 answer or the next level answer is really that 6 to 8% will tend to be some similar people. So people who are more closely orbiting around you and your content. And so that's not an excuse to just post the same thing all the time. So if you're wanting to kind of then add more value to the people that are maybe lurking more closely around your content, then I think it's what's the biggest problem that they're facing? Your target audience, where when you kick off a call, a conversation or an engagement with a client, what is that big pain point, that problem they're facing, and how does what you do solve for that? If you can share that in a post, break it down, even a small part of that problem, that's a really good kind of next step in content that's going to start piquing your target audience interest.
That's huge. That's something with StoryBrand, which I know we mentioned. That's one thing I tell people if you're with any marketing is just focus on your customer and what their biggest problem is. If you can solve that, people are a lot more likely to buy or read your posts, interact with your posts, and buy later, right? What do
Absolutely.
you think's a huge misconception among business owners with LinkedIn content?
The misconception that I see for people who, let's say you are investing some time and you're sharing content regularly on LinkedIn.
Yeah.
The biggest misconception that I see is people kind of expecting inbound leads to just start flooding their inbox.
Yeah.
It does happen. People will reach out to you and inquire about how they can work with you. And if you're doing that kind of offer-based post and you've got a strong call to action in your content, people will reach out and you'll get inbound interest.
Right.
But I reckon for every inbound inquiry you get, there's probably 5 to 10 potential clients
Yep.
or sales conversations you could be having that are orbiting around you without ever reaching out.
Yep.
And so, but I think that the challenge that for all of us is LinkedIn is a place of lurkers, and it can feel quite hard to know what to say first, if you're wanting to reach out to someone. And so I suggest a really simple outreach strategy that is designed to turn those hand raisers, turn those lurkers that are sort of orbiting around you, move them into a one-to-one conversation, I guess. And if you'd like to, I can kind of take you
Please.
through what
I'm
that
like, I'd love those strategies.
Yeah, sure. So I think of hand raisers as, and maybe a quick side note here is I invest in LinkedIn Premium. The main reason I do that is to be able to see everyone that's viewed my profile. I think that's a really, really key, that's a high intent signal when it comes to LinkedIn. If people look at your profile, that's a really good signal that you want to work with. And if you've got Premium, you can then see everyone that's done that. And you have the opportunity to then send them a one-to-one message with a connection request. I look at my hand raisers. They are people who've viewed my profile, people who've liked my content or commented on my content, people who start to follow me. And for everyone that kind of falls into one of those buckets, at least once a week, I like to try and send a simple outreach message. And the approach I use to outreach, to avoid sounding cringy or to feeling like a sleazy salesperson, is this idea of present commonality. And so I guess the best way to describe present commonality, if you imagine you go to a wedding by yourself and you arrive a little bit early at the venue and you're kind of looking around and you realize that you don't know anyone else that's going to this wedding, you're going to have to sit down next to someone that you don't know.
Right.
So you choose your seat, you go and sit down next to someone and you're sort of,
Yep.
you're waiting. To start a conversation in a situation like that, the kind of question you might ask could be, how do you know the bride and groom? And that kind of question makes sense. It's not cringy, it's not sleazy, because it references present commonality, the thing you've got in common, which is the couple that you must both know.
That's why you're here. Yep.
Exactly. And so what that looks like on LinkedIn is referencing that hand raise, that action that they've taken. So that could be, hi, Jacob, thanks for checking out my profile. And once we've kind of referenced that present commonality, then I just want to hand you the microphone to say something if there's something there. So I would say, did anything stand out?
Simple.
And that a simple kind of non-threatening open platform for them. If there was a reason that they were looking at your profile or liked your content, the stage is set for them to share that. And that's, for me, I try and engage in that routine across all my hand raisers at least once a week.
That's huge. I'm like, because let me ask you this, because I've tried some hand raisers before. Maybe someone else is thinking that, like, and maybe I haven't tried this present commonality, but with that hand raiser, what's your reply rate on that?
So it's not perfect. I mean, a lot of people are just poking around LinkedIn,
or
they're sheepish or they're shy. I would say it's probably a 15%. Now I'm only sending that to people that kind of fit my target audience, I guess.
Right.
People that
You're looking at their profile and making sure they fit. Yep.
Yeah. So I wouldn't recommend doing that as a complete blanket. Like once you've sort of identified people that are likely to fit who your audience is.
Right.
The key kind of next step from there is if they do respond, you want to try and get to a specific piece of feedback, like a specific angle. So they might say, yeah, I love the story that you shared, or I love what you're doing, or, something kind of general and positive. From there, the best way to kind of move the conversation forward, I've found, is to just go a little bit deeper and ask them what in particular they liked. And oftentimes this is a massive opener, a really good conversation starter. They'll share something that they're working on, a challenge that they're facing. It will give you something to do deeper discovery on. And all of a sudden you're into a one-to-one conversation. Commercial conversations, most conversations that end up in a sale are going to be one-to-one conversations. So it's really important to make this step into the DMs. Otherwise, you're going to struggle to turn LinkedIn into a revenue channel.
Let me ask you this. So obviously you specifically in your business is LinkedIn focus. So I think that question of, did anything stand out? If they're looking at your profile and they're like, well, I like that you had this kind of post or you wrote about this, that's going to stick out. Does that same question work? We'll just use my business as an example, right? Like I'm a business coach. I'm focusing on people and operations with small businesses. Is that still a good question for me to ask?
I think you could ask that question. You might ask that to your email newsletter, like people that engage with your email. You might,
because I can see who opened it, and
you might say, "Hey, thanks for opening or clicking on this week's email. Would love to hear, did anything in particular stand out?" So I think
I like that.
It's a nice non-threatening way to hand someone the microphone if they want to, and often you will find you'll ask what stands out, and there'll be a completely kind of tangential reason that it stood out.
Right.
And you may pivot the conversation and navigate from there. But for me, the key indicator for solopreneurs and small business owners is the more one-to-one conversations you can have, the better.
It's huge. Yep.
I think broadcast content is really, really important. But ultimately, to have a sales conversation, to find a new client, you are going to have to at some point get into a one-to-one relationship.
Yep, going to have to. Absolutely. Let me ask you this. So I'm sure you're the same way. Man, I have at least once a day in my inbox somebody with some sort of pitch message on LinkedIn, right?
The pitch slap.
And that's hilarious. I haven't heard that. The pitch slap. That's great. So I mean, at least once a day, somebody, and it's everything from a hand raiser to, an immediate page long like sales pitch, right? How can you make sure that your like DM, I guess, sticks out from the crowd of lurkers who are trying to do the same thing?
So do you know, I manage a LinkedIn profile for the CEO of a $500 million company.
Okay.
You can imagine the volume of inbound connection requests he gets. And you've got 300 characters in a connection request. At the first, maybe 60 of those kind of are displayed, above the fold, let's call it. And so, when I log into his account, it's just, he's got 500 plus unread. And it's what the biggest mistake I see with cold outreach like that. And I'm not a huge fan of cold outreach. I think you can do it in a humane way, but the biggest mistake I see is wasting those 60 characters on, hey, my own name. My name is, I would love to talk to you about, and then it's cut off.
And you're like, you're already 100 in. And
so I think if you're going to do it, the cold outreach message that I use really starts with, most solopreneurs I speak to struggle with, and then I've got language I'm using around kind of key pain points I'm seeing at the time.
60 characters of a problem.
Yeah, it's trying to get straight to the point, because they know who they are. They know their own name, so you don't need to use that really. They know who you are because it's above the message that you're sending, and all the fluff, all the filler just needs to come out, so that you have the best possible chance of kind of at least them grasping what you're on about. Again, not a foolproof 100% strategy. And I don't rely heavily on cold outreach, but if you want to make it part of your strategy, I think that's probably the key thing that I see on LinkedIn.
Okay, that's great. That's good to know. I hadn't even thought about the first 60 characters. Now that you say it, I see that in my messages, right? Especially when the notification pops up on my phone.
Exactly.
You only get that first little, and it's, hey, Jacob, enter. And so really that's all you get to see, right? So I feel like you kind of hinted at this, but you've mentioned this flywheel effect, right? And using your business as a content source for LinkedIn content creation. How does this work in practice?
Yeah, so this really comes back to that idea that the best content, I believe, isn't created from scratch. It's found, it's lurking all around you. And so what it looks like in practice for me is whenever I'm talking to a customer or a prospect, and you can use AI tools if you're doing this on Zoom and you're recording your calls, which I try and record every call, get notes from every call so I can pull that stuff out. But even just as a person having conversations, when are those high stakes moments? When are they when can you sense them sort of leaning in or pushing back or when there's moments of tension or real alignment, if it's a teaching moment, for example, and you can feel people really absorbing, like those are the types of moments you want to try and turn into content. That can be like literally clipping. I clip coaching calls all the time and use them as video content. You can, if it's a discovery call, you can turn that customer objection or the question into like the hook of a post.
But yeah, that's good.
And then share what your kind of objection handling would be as kind of the body of that post. So and really this came out of, when I was deep in the ghostwriting business, I was like a content factory. I was producing all this content every week and I was delivering all this content for clients, and I'd get kind of to the end of the week and I'd have to try and start thinking about my own content, and staring at a blank page was killing me. And I realized there has to be somewhere else I can find some material to work with. And so I developed this approach to really harvesting content and trying to find it rather than create it from scratch.
Can I try to use an example too here? Because I want to get into, we've talked about a lot of my audience is Chick-fil-A. Hi, Chick-fil-A people. How's it going? So if their content is not so much, coaching, like they're selling an actual product, something I thought about is, and this goes for any small business, I'm sure you have a way to get customer feedback, right? Whether it's at a Chick-fil-A, it's a code on a receipt, and they can actually type in negative or positive feedback, right? And so I think that could be a great way to share a post of, hey, just, again, you don't get customer data with those, but it's like you can say, hey, listen to what a customer said about a visit to our business this week. Just wanted to share it. Shout out to X team member who made this happen. Can't wait to create more experience like this. Is that a good example of this?
Yeah, I think that makes a lot of sense. Wherever you can give an insight into what your customers are thinking, satisfied, and I would actually even say potentially dissatisfied customers as well. Like if something goes wrong and you can authentically kind of own that and share what you're doing to make things better, that can also be really engaging content for LinkedIn as well. But any way you can get your hands on what a customer is saying or thinking about your business and try and plug that in as content is really powerful.
That's huge. I like what you said too about if there's negative feedback you've received using that, because to me that shows authenticity, right? Like nobody's perfect, no business is perfect. So even calling out, hey, we made this mistake last week and here's what we've done to fix it. To me, I'm a lot more likely to go to that business than even someone sharing the great experience they had. Like it's something I studied when I was at Chick-fil-A is people are actually twice, I think maybe it's 3 times as more likely to come back if they have a mistake and you went above and beyond to fix it than even if they had a good experience the first time.
Yeah.
Which is crazy.
That's a really powerful stat. I mean, one of my most successful LinkedIn posts in the last 12 months was a client asked me for a refund and I felt sick in the stomach for days afterwards. It had never happened before. And I kind of shared my honest reflections on that and what I'd learned and how I was going to try and avoid that happening again. And it helped me also kind of get it off my chest in a way and move on from it too. And it's the kind of content, if you think about LinkedIn specifically, it can feel like a wall of positivity.
Definitely.
Like all social media, it can feel like the polished perfection, which we know isn't reality. So that can be a really good way to stand out as well.
Something I've kind of mentioned before, the algorithm, right? Every social media plan is different. And I feel like I'm reading an article every week about, the algorithm's shifting, or I'll try to notice trends and, I commented on more posts this week and then my post got more engagement. It's exhausting, right? You've said you've created an action plan that's algorithm proof. It only takes 20 minutes a week. It sounds like a dream for me and probably other business owners. How does this work?
Yeah, look, I think the key to this is, and you're right, the algorithm flicks around all the time.
Yeah.
And to an extent we are subject to, that is what part of the price of admission for social media. But I think how you kind of stabilize yourself against algorithm changes is getting deep into that that outreach routine that we talked about. So trying to move into one-to-one conversations, picking up on every thread that's out there. So not just leaving it to the algorithm to do its thing, but trying to leave no stone unturned with that.
Yeah.
Taking that another step, I try and encourage clients to have at least one virtual or real life coffee conversation with someone that comes out of that kind of outreach process. So actually taking that direct message conversation a step further and building one relationship a week if they can. Trying to show up and comment on it, at least 5 posts each time you go to post or go to schedule content is a great way to help boost, as you said there, kind of boost what the audience you're reaching, but also the different groups that you're reaching as well, rather than just talking to your own first degree audience all the time. So it doesn't have to be long. For me, it's like if you're scheduling in a post, spend 5 minutes, 10 minutes scrolling, try and leave 5 comments. If you're really struggling with knowing how to add value, a really genuine specific compliment is a great way to go. And not make it specific, so not thanks for sharing, but go a little bit deeper if you can and share what you liked about the post. That can really help. And 5, spend 5-10 minutes doing that. Then go in, do your hand raisers routine, and that could be kind of job done at a light scale. I mean, I definitely spend more than 20 minutes at a time in LinkedIn over the course of a week, just the nature of my work. But there's a limit. There's a tipping point where it needs to serve you and not the other way around. So I strongly suggest batch scheduling your content. So you've got the little clock icon next to the post button. Try and write, your week's worth of content, or 3 pieces at a time, however it works for you. Queue them all up, do some of your engagement, maybe check back in towards the end of the week, check your inbox, do some more engagement, and that, and kind of call it a week. I think is, if you're trying to keep off social media and get on with actually running your business, a strategy like that can
work. I use that schedule button often, so totally
agree. Yeah.
If there's one thing that our listeners could walk away from this conversation, you've talked about a lot, and I think it's all important about mastering LinkedIn. What's the one thing you want people to take away from our conversation today?
The one thing I would say is be really be human on there. I think we are now flooded with AI options, automation tools you can use to do things in bulk. You can send 100 call connection requests, automated. There's all these kind of things that feel like shortcuts out there, and I just think take a second to think whether you would do that or act that way if it was a real life networking event. How would you want to show up to a real life networking event and approach people in real life? And I think that's as many shortcuts and tools and techniques and stuff I feel like I'm floating around. It doesn't seem quite right for you as a person, then be clear of it and do stuff on a smaller scale.
Joe, where can people connect with you? More about your work. I want to work with you. Where can we do that?
Yeah, so look, I'm on Big Blue Box on LinkedIn.
That's right.
So you can definitely find me there. So it's Joe McKay, JoeMcKay. I share my best insights on the newsletter at joemckay.info. When you sign up there, you get access to my kind of all the best stuff, a lot of what we talked about today. That's JoeMckay.com.
I'd encourage everyone to do the same, and I'll have it here in the episode description. Joe, thank you so much for being on this conversation with me. It's truly valuable. I took a page of notes in my notebook, and I'm sure if you're driving and listening, you're wishing you could have taken notes. And look, use an AI tool to transcribe this and get the notes from it. But to everyone watching and listening, thank you so much for watching and listening to this episode of the Waves Business Coaching Podcast. Take care.